In our control room, we got this live picture out of New York City. Yes, that is the top of the Empire State Building. I am not from New York, but maybe my producers can kind of let me know. Whoever is familiar with the Empire State Building, you can educate me while I'm on the air. What is access to the top of this building? Are you, if you come to visit the Empire State Building, how far are you allowed to go? Do you buy tickets? I went there once as a child. I don't remember, but I'm curious how these two got up there. So it is an observation deck. Okay, so they are at the observation deck, but this is not an area where you're allowed to go up to where the antenna is. But they clearly got to the observation deck. They've moved their way up to the top of the antenna. I'm being told it's a man and a woman protesting at the top of the Empire State Building. The banner reads, "When the power of love beats the love of power, the world knows peace." 204 feet tall, that antenna. So we don't know much about these two individuals, except that this is a pretty risky move, folks. And clearly, we've got a live shot. We don't know what exactly they're protesting, what has driven them to get to the top of Empire State Building. But we do have our chief investigative correspondent, Aaron Katursky, on the line. Aaron, I don't know if you're finding out anything about this man and this woman. Is this, a serious protest? Is this a stunt? Is this something? So many questions here. But bottom line, it's dangerous, and we are monitoring it live.
It is incredibly dangerous. It is likely a criminal trespassing situation. The NYPD is looking at the same images that we are, Kira, showing two people unfurling a banner at the top of the Empire State Building at a time when the NYPD has just started working 12-hour shifts and trying to blanket the city in security in anticipation of all the events tied to the 4th of July and America's 250th birthday. This is not something that the NYPD wants to see. I'm not sure how they're going to get them down. They are certainly going to be arrested once they are down and taken into custody. But the message of love, or whatever the banner says, is clearly meant to draw cameras. These two people have certainly drawn plenty of attention with a stunt like this. You can see there on the observation deck of the Empire State Building that tourists are there as usual, whether they're aware even that somebody may be on top of the spire of the Empire State Building. It would be difficult to see from that vantage point, but tourists are up there all the time. This is clearly a breach in security and something the NYPD is now aware of. I've been texting with sources, Kira, and they're watching the same pictures we are.
So I'm looking up the quote here, and it looks like this quote has been widely attributed to Jimi Hendrix. Feel free, folks, to correct me if I'm wrong. It's been used in protest banners before. It's been on signs, murals, artwork around the world, apparently for decades. Aaron, I have not seen it, but apparently this slogan has been used during anti-war protests, during the Vietnam War era, during peace marches, climate change demonstrations, even women's marches, anti-violence vigils. So I am curious to know, is this just a couple, or are they a part of some sort of organization? The banner, nothing new. What they're doing, we don't know. We don't have a lot of information. But let me ask you, while living in New York, have you ever seen protesters make it to the tip of the antenna like this?
I've not seen to the tip of the spire on the Empire State Building. I've never seen that. We've seen people try to climb the facade of the New York Times building or One World Trade Center. We've gone on the air when there have been different stunts like that. I've not seen something like this. It appears that at least one of them is wearing a helmet or a head covering of some kind. Whether they are belayed in with a carabiner in rope, it's difficult to know. But the intention seems to have been to unfurl the banner with the message. And then what they're doing there, Whether there's a GoPro camera on their head is hard to tell. I'm not sure the police have established their identities yet. It appears to be a protest, and how it's going to end now is anyone's guess. The two individuals seem content to stay there for a bit, knowing that the eyes of the country, at least some of them, are clearly on them right now. Kira, I just came literally moments ago, walked back into the building here from an NYPD briefing about security for July 4th, when they were talking about all of the officers that would be on duty, the crowd control, the screening, trying to keep people safe during the multiple major events that are occurring in the city tied to the 4th of July and the 250th anniversary of the country. I'm not sure this was, accounted for.
All right, so total height of the Empire State Building, 1,454 feet. That antenna spire, 204 feet. The roof, more than 1,200 feet tall, 102 stories. And from what I understand, you're the New Yorker, Aaron. You can get to the observation deck, which is what, at the bottom of the antenna there? Is that right? And then you've got to climb it to the top?
Well, you're not really supposed to do that. That's not not like a thing. But it's basically a big radio antenna that's up there, and the observation deck, and you can see people that are on the observation deck is what, at the 86th floor, and so you would then have to climb from there. The building is supposed to be designed so you can't climb it. That's not really a thing. And people who are on the observation deck now are clearly being evacuated. It seems as if the observation deck is being cleared of people, perhaps so the police can operate there freely if they need to send their own climbers. The NYPD does have an emergency services unit that does do the whole carabiner belay rope thing, that they could, in theory, try to get in a position where they could talk these people down. There's an NYPD drone that's flying around the area. There could be some sound equipment that's trying to convince these people to come down. They will clearly be arrested once they do, but for now, these two individuals dressed all in black, who have unfurled a banner at the very top of the spire of the Empire State Building, are seemingly content to do what they have done and to perhaps begin to descend on their own time, Kira.
All right, so maybe we can get Brian Buckmeyer involved in this conversation and can talk about what these folks face with regard to criminal charges, because maybe we can get one of our legal analysts on the line. Clearly climbing to the top of this antenna, Aaron, is strictly illegal, and it's exceptionally dangerous. That is clear. It does look like one of the protesters is starting to work his way down. It is an active broadcast tower. I didn't realize that till now. Yes. And I guess there have been some highly publicized arrests that have taken place in the past. There was an exterior climb. It looks like it was legal, though. It was an illegal exterior climb that actor Jared Leto actually made back in 2023. He harnessed up to scale from the 86th floor to the base of the antenna. But with regard to protesters making their way all the way to the top, the Jimi Hendrix quote that we've seen there on the banner. Now I see a helicopter. Is that a NYPD helo?
It's an NYPD helicopter that's being sent to the area, Kira, to undoubtedly try to get these people to come down. It looked as if one of them was about to descend, but then decided to climb right back up onto the red beacon that sits atop the spire, meant to warn aircraft of the height of the tower. They have unfurled the banner, and they are just standing there now. And the NYPD has drones, they have officers, they have helicopters that are there. They've cleared, it appears, the observation deck, and that's about as high as the police are going to be able to get without maneuvering the way these protesters seem to have done themselves. But the interest now is in getting them down, Kira.